like once you know you have a plan, you can go and ask, right? Like as a whatever 20 something year old in a bank, जहाँ मुझे पता है मुझे ये नहीं करना है लाइफ में, but I don't know what I want to do in life. I didn't even know what the right question to ask, but someone told me कि यार you have a like someone took pity or whatever and told me कि यार देखो तेरी प्रोफाइल अच्छी है, तो IIT से है, तो कैंपस प्रेसिडेंट था, ये सब था. Why don't you do something which तो यहाँ बैंक में क्या कर रहा है, ठीक है? Why are you not applying for Harvard MBA? लाइक हाँ ये बात तो सही बोल रहा हूँ. हार्वर्ड एमबीए हैड अ लॉट ऑफ अर्लियर बैक देन. क्या है हाँ मतलब ठीक है. तो देन माय क्वेश्चन वाज कैसे, तो क्या करना होगा? तो ही सेड क्या लाइक डू समथिंग डिफरेंट. लाइक यहाँ ये तो सही लग रहा है कि अभी जो चल रहा है वो तो मतलब उसमें तो ऐसे भी कुछ नहीं हो रहा, तो डिफरेंट ही करना होगा. तो ही वाज लाइक यार यू गो एंड यू वर्क एट लाइक, एंड दिस इज 2011. सो स्टार्टअप्स वर लाइक अ कॉलेज में स्टार्टअप क्या होता है ये नहीं पता. ठीक है, बस ये पता है कुछ लोग ये कुछ कर रहे हैं. तो देवर 2 स्टार्टअप्स इन कैंपस एक्चुअली. एक का नाम माइंड की था, दूसरे का नाम इंटिनो था. नाम मतलब यही 2 स्टार्टअप थे उस समय खड़गपुर में. एंड देयर वाज लाइक वेरी स्मार्ट गाइस एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट था कि हाँ ये इतना कुछ अलग टाइप के लोग हैं, पता नहीं क्या करते हैं बट कुछ तो अलग टाइप के लोग हैं, रेस्पेक्टेड बट वियर्ड टाइप से. ठीक है, तो स्टार्टअप वाज नॉट द नॉर्म, बट दिस पर्सन दीपक सिंगल नाम है उनका, ही इज फ्रॉम आईआईटी बॉम्बे एंड ही वाज इन माय टीम. फॉर सम रीजन ही टुक पिटी ऑन मी, लाइक यार इसको गाइड कर देते हैं, पता नहीं क्या कर रहा है से. तो ही सेड क्या तुम ये कर लो कि व्हाई डोंट यू ट्राई स्टार्टअप्स. आई वाज लाइक यार ये तो इंटरेस्टिंग है बिकॉज़ स्टार्टअप्स. आई आस्क्ड कि क्यों. तो लाइक यार ऑटोनॉमी मिलेगी, यू विल बी एबल टू डू थिंग्स, इट विल बी अ बेटर एक्सपीरियंस. हिज पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू वाज इट आल्सो लुक्स गुड व्हेन यू राइट योर एप्लीकेशन फॉर हार्वर्ड स्कूल, राइट? बट ही पुट इट दैट वे, लाइक यार ये तो इंटरेस्टिंग है. सो देन thankfully through him I got connected to like Abhishek Goyal, now Traction, back then Urban Touch. So Deepak only connected me to sort of Abhishek, and I went, I did an interview, luckily got a job, joined that team very early, and never thought about doing anything else rather than building companies thereafter.
Hey Arnav, thanks for agreeing to do this. Look forward to the chat, and the people behind you show that you're in a super active office.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Big fan of your work for a long time.
Thank you.
And this is officially my first podcast ever.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
So thanks for getting me on this slope.
Awesome. We hope it goes up from here, and it's not it just goes downhill after this.
That's what I meant. Like thanks for getting me on the slope. Now it should go up.
Awesome.
Can't go down.
Awesome. Arnav, what is one truth few people agree with you on? That's our curveball beginning question to heat things up.
I think the one truth that most people don't agree on initially, and then there's usually like a big conversation and it goes into a debate and all of that, is I think entrepreneurship can be pursued as a career. Which, like most people think entrepreneurship is something people pursue between careers, right? Oh, I'm doing something, then I'll take a break, then I'll be an entrepreneur. If it doesn't work out, then I'll go back to a job, and then maybe I'll try again. I think entrepreneurship can be pursued as a career, and probably there's no better time to pursue entrepreneurship as a career if you have if you know the rules of the game, right? So the other thing most people, I don't know, agree, disagree, but what sort of is not very intuitive to people, but I find it as a guiding principle, is that every person should be the athlete, like should define what their game is and aspire to be the best athlete of their game, like to be the Michael Jordan of their game or the Virat Kohli of their game. And I think if people have that narrowed down, life becomes very, very easy. And then your frameworks sort of become very, very simple because you know what your true North Star is. Similarly, like if someone feels entrepreneurship is their true North Star, I think that can be planned as a career on how to get there. Understand. It's not one of those things that you do between jobs. That's
fascinating.
It's
a very good answer and very different. I kind of agree with you. I think you've done a couple of startups before. You yourself are probably a product of this thinking. But I see it in a lot of second-time entrepreneurs that they realize that there are some rules to this game. It's not completely random, and you just need to learn them and play it well. That's fair. Would love to talk about your early days growing up, and then getting into an IIT, which is what every Indian parent dreams of. Choices after that. I hope you dreamt of it as well. I'm just like assuming your parents did. Um, and then choices after that, career decisions, your early startups, as well as investing that you've done. So you have that unique mix of being an investor and a founder. Would love to talk through that.
Sure. Where do I start? Should I start from sort of the beginning?
Wherever you are
Yeah.
comfortable with.
Sure, sure. It'll be quite long, but happy to.
That's
I
okay.
like chatting, so
Sure.
I'm up for it. Yeah, so I'm from Ranchi. I keep telling like it's a town which people didn't know before MS Dhoni, but I'm from Ranchi. Incidentally, I'm also from the same school as MS Dhoni. So talk
Okay.
about pressure. And so yeah, so born and brought up in Ranchi. Both my parents are teachers. My dad is a professor of physics. He has a PhD in physics, and my mom has been running a school for 25 years. She has a MSc in physics and a PhD in education. So it was like from the very beginning, like my fate was quite sealed that I'll grow up and sort of go to an IIT.
Yes.
Because my dad also because he was a professor of physics, he also used to teach folks after like college, in the evenings. He would teach folks for ITJ.
Right.
And from the very beginning, I think from the class 4th, 5th, it would be like, oh, this guy who used to come to the tuition got a 51 rank in ITJ. So that was quite prevalent. So it was quite assumed that sort of I'll go to sort of IIT. And I never had the option, so I was a hardworking kid because there was no other option. I think one thing, there was nothing particularly interesting about Ranchi. I think it was like, apart from the fact I went to MS Dhoni school, I don't think there's anything that I call particularly interesting. I was a good kid. I was top of class throughout. And then I came to class 11th when I realized to being top of class is not enough, because like it's a very different ball game when you think about GE and all of that,
Right.
right? But luckily, I think I barely scraped through and got into IIT. I think it was a Now when I look back, I understand why I worked very hard but just got through. I think I didn't have the killer instinct, which I later on realized that for you to do something exceptional, which would mean, for example, JE rank under 10, you have to have like a very very sharp killer instinct. You can't
Right.
just be hardworking. You have to be very very. You have to have that
Can
sort
you
of eye of
talk
the
about
tiger.
that? That's a very fascinating topic, and your parents didn't ask you to become an IS officer. Was my follow-up question, because that's uh, a lot of
Yeah,
Bihari parents' dreams. So stereotyping, I'm a UP kid.
yeah,
Similar thing.
yeah,
But the killer instinct. Can you talk about it? It's a very important
yeah.
concept.
I think, I don't know. Maybe it's a very middle class thing that there's no concept of working backwards. There's
Hmm.
only concept of working hard and keep working hard and keep working hard and keep working hard, and you'll get somewhere if you're working hard. And there's a lot of like these things about खाने के लिए मत जियो जीने के लिए खाओ, like kind of things, like, right. And पढ़ोगे नहीं तो क्या करोगे, things, but which is all fine. But I think the one thing, like, there's a very interesting I don't know, someone should actually do an analysis of it. But if you look at JE top 10 rank now for the last 20 years, for some weird reason, I think 70% of them are Marwadis. I don't know why. Like, when I rack my brain, I think about people that I know
It's
who
true.
are like top. So they're actually all like, and again, I'm not like, I'm very, very, like, I don't have a last name. So I'm like as far as from being like
Stereotyping.
oh,
Yeah.
stereotyping anyone from,
Yeah.
my name is Arnav. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's my only, right? But you look, there'll be a lot of Agarwals and Poddars and, Jains and all of that. So it's a very interesting thing. I actually thought about it after I, because when I graduated and I started working at Deutsche would have this habit of going to campus, getting all the like smart kids from all over. So thought I just got there by luck, but thankfully there were a lot of very very smart kids around, and like J rank 11 and like 9 and all of that. All of them were like Maoris, and I was like, what is this thing? But I personally think like this whole I don't think middle class, especially service middle class,
Yeah.
right, doesn't doesn't talk in terms of working backwards, doesn't talk in terms of ROI,
Hmm.
doesn't talk in terms of oh ये invest करेंगे तो ये होगा. There's no talk of investing. There's only talk of saving. Work hard and save, right?
Right.
So I think what I mean by killer instinct is that the killer instinct is like जो finally ना वो कोटा अकेडमी में आता है जो लाइक द वेब सीरीज राइट,
Yes.
फिर इसे कि यार केमिस्ट्री नहीं समझ में आती है, तो बोलता है ना कि भाई भाई मतलब तो मतलब क्यों करना है टॉप तुझे केमिस्ट्री में, मतलब पास ही होना है ना,
Right.
लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल आई हैड जीरो कांसेप्ट ऑफ दिस राइट, सो व्हेन आई सॉ दिस आई वाज लाइक ओ फक, ये तो पहले समझ में आना चाहिए था, मतलब आई हैड
Right.
गॉटन इट बाय दैट टाइम, बट somebody articulating it is like so much more eye opening, right? So I think that killer instinct was missing, because this is what I want and this is the shortest and the easiest path to get there, and hence I should do that. It was always कि यार सबसे ज्यादा मेहनत कैसे करें, so it was lot of focus on inputs की अरे 12 घंटे पढ़ रहे हैं तो 16 कैसे पढ़ सकते हैं टाइप से, that was मतलब हो सकता है 8 घंटे में ही हो जाए, मतलब काम की चीज पढ़ लो ना यार तुमने, मतलब टाइप से, राइट? सो आई थिंक दैट वाज severely missing. That's what I meant by killer instinct.
I absolutely agree. So, and Mazin, you can chime in. My mom is Bania, so I would contribute half of my success to that. The other half is not Bania, my dad. The killer instinct point, actually, I have a very close friend who was JE48. And he told me how he approached maths questions. And he said I was not a purist about it. Like I was a purist, so I got screwed. I mehnat karke answer लाएंगे. He's like, I work backwards from what I want to get, and then I solve it. It's a very big attitudinal shift, and I think that contributed to him scoring well, because he's like, this is the problem. मेरे को इसको तोड़ना है, कैसे करना है? Versus I will mindlessly like just put in effort. I absolutely agree.
I'll follow the rules.
You follow the rules. You said it really well.
I think my friend Aniket says this very well. So Aniket is also very smart. He's JE rank 129. He's now building 100 MS, right?
Okay.
Probably one of the smartest thing. He said like for any game now, you first have to learn the rules and then you have to break the rules. I think I as a middle class kid forgot the second, like never knew the second one. Like learn the rules and follow the rules, please. Yes. Right? तो मतलब अगर है कि अरे मतलब ट्रिग्नोमेट्री का क्वेश्चन या व्हाटएवर, लाइक इसका क्वेश्चन है, मैकेनिक्स का क्वेश्चन है, तो यार 2 पेज से पहले तो सॉल्व थोड़ी होता है, 6 क्वेश्चन नहीं लिखेंगे तो मजा कहां है, राइट? वर्सेस सेइंग कि once you learn the rules then you learn to break the rules ना. So I think like great top rankers ना know how to break the rules also. It's an attitudinal thing, I agree.
And I think they're intuitively good at it. It's not like they somebody taught them, but they're just good at it.
Maybe like it's also like culture na, like for example, like again my dad is sort of from Bihar, right? And like he's an extreme he's like if I'm doing, so he would actually do his tuitions for JE at 6 in the morning, finish at 8, go to college, do whole day of college, come back at 4, go back at 6 and do it till 8, because like यार college के time पे तो I will not like take 15 minutes of, like it's a very very purest thing, right?
I understand.
Pratishtha sabse.
Yes.
Like versus my mom is again Punjabi business family, right? Her attitude is very different. Her attitude is कि यार ROI कहाँ है, मतलब काम कैसे होगा ये बताओ ना, मतलब she's okay bending more rules than my dad is. My dad would not bend any rules. My mom is okay bending rules.
Yeah.
So like maybe it's a
I think the Bania thing comes in there because they think ROI, probably.
Yeah.
Possibly. There are lots of Agarwals and all. I completely agree. That's fascinating.
मतलब almost मुझे लगता है कि middle class, at least the middle class side उसके में वहाँ पे टेढ़ा सोचना was looked down upon. क्या टेढ़ा क्यों सोच रहे हो? सीधा सोचो ना यार, तुम टेढ़ा क्यों? जबकि यार like you to get into to be exceptional in life at anything, you have to think like थोड़ा सा हट के ना, मतलब otherwise तो बहुत मतलब then it's like 16 घंटे पढ़े कि 18 घंटे पढ़े. You have to be smart about it. I think that is generally frowned upon also. Like it was very frowned upon in my like my dad's mindset.
Yeah.
यार नहीं सीधा सोचो ना यार.
Yeah. So I think for non-linear outcomes in life, you have to think non-linearly, and I agree that टेढ़ा तरीके से सोचना is probably better in my opinion. But awesome. So
but anyway,
so you do IIT, get into DB. Talk us through your journey after that. Key decision points. You became an investor, and that was after a founder, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, sure. I'll just take you through that quickly. So so did all that, barely got into IIT. IIT was actually transformational for me. Like IIT gave me this confidence that no matter where you come from, and even if you have just got into IT and everyone seems smarter, everyone has a spike. Very interestingly, my spike was English.
Oh.
I scored the highest among, like, there's a first year exam, English common, right? So this one guy who's got
वो हमारे टाइम पे नहीं था, by the way. It stopped.
Acha. So my first spike was English. So I realized that this everyone has some spike, right? And then I realized my spike is more sort of interpersonal skills. So I would be like, I used to get along very well with seniors and very well with juniors. I would not get as well along with my peers because I was competitive. I didn't know how to channel my competitiveness. But with my seniors and my juniors, I was like very, very good. So I think from there is when I realized that I probably spike on being a people's person. I get people, I understand people, I can, and I genuinely feel I enjoy working with people, and I think empathy comes naturally to me. So that's what I realized कि अच्छा ठीक है यहाँ पे spike है. Thankfully IIT gave a lot of fillip or push to that or opportunity. So I became the president of the student council at IIT Kharagpur, right? And that I think was very, very important, because that I think gave me the confidence that you can think differently and you can aspire to be special. So I think that's very, very important. I think for every person, there's some point of time and there's some moment when they get this confidence that I can try to be special, right? तो मतलब वो बहुत बार आता जाता भी है. Like बचपन में, like when I was in class like 5th, 6th, I would do top and I would be like, boss, I am so special. Then you go to class 11th, all the toppers from all Bihar, Jharkhand used to come to your school, and then you realize ki fuck, like you're not special. And then you go to IIT first year, like everyone is smarter than me, fat chance, like survive. Then you realize ki okay, so I think it's important to have those spikes in life. I think that spike did a world of good. If I hadn't gotten that spike, I would be very, very average. Like I would be sitting, like I would be doing something like very, very sort of average, I think, compared to what I'm doing now and the life that I've had now, which is adventurous much more. I would take this life over that one. So yeah, so that I think was the high point. It gave me a lot of confidence, did a world of good. Then from there I got into Deutsche. So I studied maths and computing, but I pretty much like spent most of my time outside of classroom. So I was very active in sort of in the college circuit, fests, and then campus movements, and like the president of the student gymkhana and all of that. So studied maths and computing. My dream job was HUL, but they didn't take me. I always thought I would be a good floor manager because I like working with people and process, and there was an allure of these MNCs. But they said maths and computing, what will you do on a floor?
Weird. So I was engineering physics. They didn't open for our branches, even though we had very good ranks. I didn't understand that. And to your earlier point, I used to write on Quora, one of the most popular questions was, why are IITians so arrogant? And I'm like, if you have come to an IIT, you will realize that kisi ki bachti nahi hai uske baad, because they see so many people who are so much better than them at other things. I think it's a very transformational experience for everyone.
So that happened. Joined Deutsche, which was like great, like super. I was super happy. But because it was day zero, first job, like all of that. I called up my dad. My dad was like, "What's your salary?" I told him. He said, "That's it." I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like Indian dads. After that, I've never tried to please my dad. Like I slogged my ass off for 5 years, figuring out क्या CADs क्या करें, extra CADs क्या करें, यार ये कैसे करें, inter IT कैसे करें. All of that you do, and then you get your like dream job, and then your dad is like, "Boss." So like, okay. But anyway, I got into Deutsche. Deutsche, again, interestingly, they recruited some very, very smart people from all the sort of campuses. And then they have an internal sort of thing. There'll be an internal placement. So they have like a 1 month thing, and then they have a internal placement. The Hunger Games chalta hai wahan pe. So like different teams will come, and like wahan pe hoga ki how do I get into this team, that team, and all of that. Thankfully, I got into again like a good team. I think purely out of luck, because everyone else was smarter. So I got into the team that everyone wanted and I wanted, and all of that. So I was there, and banking, like investment banking was fun. They made us stay in a 5-star hotel for a month, and it's like back then it was like, whoa, okay, all of that was fun. But you realize that wears off very, very quickly, right? And I think 3-4 months in the system, I pretty much realized that I'm not a banker. That realization came very, very quickly to me.
That's really fast. 3 months into it, like right after you
Yeah.
graduated. I'm done.
I was very clear he was like this is no, but the thing is like once I personally feel if you have ever been in a position where you are the decision maker, then it's very
Right.
hard for you to make peace with the
Yeah.
fact that you will not be a decision maker for 20 years. Like
Right.
those are things like 20 साल
Relax
तुम
that
नहीं
you're
decision
ready.
maker, that I think is very hard. So I was so used to being a decision maker thanks to all my sort of experiences at sort of IIT. It just and I've seen that if you're a decision maker and if you work hard, now you can make changes. So I'm very proud of what like my work as the president of the student council there. So we were able to get a lot of things done. So that gave me this high. Yeah, you wake up, you know what you want to do, you do your work, and you'll get a result, and that will then become a virtuous loop. You'll try to work harder, think of something more ambitious, and right that whole flywheel, that loop, I really enjoyed. And then suddenly you go into a bank where you have zero autonomy and you have no agency, and like you are also thinking about like how do I make sense of the system where I'm like the like 17,235th employee. So वो framework ही नहीं हुआ. And then I also like then the big thing in Deutsche was going onshore. Okay, you are sort of in Bombay for a year, and then you go relocate to like London. And I sort of again I went there during my trips and all of that. And I realized that the people who are there after 10 years, like who I would be after like 7, 8, 10 years, generally have very lonely lives. Like the alpha male in a bank or alpha female in a bank is a trader. The trader's job is very individualistic. It's you, your console, and generally your whey protein. Like this is what I found. Like the typical like the desk of a trader would have like 3 Bloomberg terminals and 1 whey protein ka dabba. So I was like, yeah, this is very individualistic. And I have never been very individualistic. I've never been very money minded. What I generally enjoy is like working with a set of people. If I can motivate them, great. But generally working with a set of folks to achieve something together, I think that high is exceptional, which I got when I was in the fest and we did things which were hard and we overachieved. वो high like was very, very good. So I realized यार ये तो नहीं हो पाएगा यहाँ पे. So and maybe the good thing is again like the good thing about coming from a middle class non-banya family is that you don't care about money as much.
Yes, I completely relate to that. I completely relate to that. Yes.
Right. So generally it's like like for example, my dad never said ki beta like go and like I hope when you grow up you make a lot of money. It was like beta I hope when you grow up you go to IIT.
Yes.
Right. And then there was a point where it was like ki now that you have completed IIT, do you want to think about UPSC?
Yes,
right?
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, so it was never make a lot of money. I think the framework was make a lot of money, then the banking and trading route actually makes a lot more sense.
Right.
It's the safest way to like make money. You go maybe do an MBA on the way and then maybe join a hedge fund and whatever is the safest linear path to making like outlier money.
Right.
But thankfully, like money was never top of mind because of my dad. So I realized कि ठीक है. So then there's no allure of banking, and then I realized कि I have to get out. And then again, I think I've always been very lucky with seniors. Like I've always found people who have for some reason have decided to give me good free advice and mentor me. Like for some reason, like I was reading this post today where someone said that there are people in your life called parachute packers. Like people who are doing their job thanklessly. Like if you're a fighter pilot, someone is packing your parachute every time.
Right.
And you're not going and seeing thanks every time, right? But the one time your plane gets shot, then you realize, somebody has been doing their job thanklessly. So they're like people who look after you. I don't know what to call them, whether you call them guardian angels, parachute packers, whatever. But I have always been very lucky. For some reason, I have always been able to find people who genuinely were motivated to give me advice, even if I didn't ask them. Because I was so shy and so stupid and I had zero plans. कि मैं जाके पूछूं भी क्या मतलब like once you know you have a plan you can go and ask, right? Like as a whatever 20 something year old in a bank जहाँ मुझे पता है मुझे ये नहीं करना है life में, but I don't know what I want to do in life. I didn't even know what the right question to ask, but someone told me कि यार you have someone took pity or whatever and told me कि यार देखो तेरी प्रोफाइल अच्छी है, तो IIT से है, तो कैंपस प्रेसिडेंट था, ये सब था. Why don't you do something which तो यहाँ बैंक में क्या कर रहा है? ठीक है, why are you not applying for Harvard MBA? I was like, हाँ ये बात तो सही बोल रहे हो, like Harvard MBA had a lot of value back then, क्या है, हाँ मतलब ठीक है. So then my question was कैसे, तो क्या करना होगा? तो he said क्या, like do something different, like यहाँ ये सही लग रहा है क्योंकि अभी जो चल रहा है वो तो मतलब उसमें तो ऐसे भी कुछ नहीं हो रहा, तो डिफरेंट ही करना होगा. He was like, yeah, you go and you work at like, and this is 2011, so startups were like a कॉलेज में स्टार्टअप क्या होता है ये नहीं पता, ठीक है, बस ये पता है कुछ लोग ये कुछ कर रहे हैं. तो देयर वर 2 स्टार्टअप्स इन कैंपस एक्चुअली, एक का नाम माइंकी था, दूसरे का नाम इंटिनो था, नाम मतलब यही 2 स्टार्टअप थे उस समय खड़गपुर में. एंड देयर वाज लाइक वेरी स्मार्ट गाइस एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट, था कि हाँ ये इतना कुछ अलग टाइप के लोग हैं, पता नहीं क्या करते हैं बट कुछ तो अलग टाइप के लोग हैं, रेस्पेक्टेड बट वियर्ड टाइप से, ठीक है. तो स्टार्टअप वाज नॉट द नॉर्म, बट दिस पर्सन Deepak Singhal नाम है उनका, he's from IIT Bombay and he was in my team. For some reason he took pity on me, like यार इसको गाइड कर देते हैं, पता नहीं क्या कर रहे हैं इससे. तो he said क्या तुम ये कर लो कि why don't you try startups? I was like यार ये तो interesting है because startups. I asked कि क्यों? तो like यार autonomy मिलेगी, you will be able to do things, it will be a better experience. His point of view was it also looks good when you write your application for Harvard school, right? But he put it that way. I was like yeah तो interesting है. So then thankfully through him I got connected to like Abhishek Goyal, now Traction, back then Urban Touch. So Deepak only connected me to sort of Abhishek, and I went, I did an interview, luckily got a job, joined that team very early, and never thought about doing anything else rather than building companies thereafter. So that was like the short sort of PB stint. Then I went to Urban Touch. I consider Urban Touch as again like a super lucky break. I consider it as my MBA into business because pretty much like whether it's digital marketing, product sort of management, consumer internet क्या होता है, और मतलब how does variable cost, like small sort of positive variable cost over time cover your large fixed costs, and कैसे वो internet companies scale होती हैं and all of that, had zero notion. Like I would hardly read business. I had no understanding of business before that. So Urban Touch was effectively my MBA. So I went there, I did my MBA for 2 years, had the time of my life, really enjoyed sort of every day there. For the 2 years I was there was never a dull moment. It was as if I'm back in college, like doing something with like very smart people and working on hard problems. That was fun. So that actually like cemented this notion in my head that I'm more of a builder than a banker.
Right.
So that Urban Touch happened and very sort of again.
And you dropped your Harvard MBA जो भी था.
That actually I never pursued only. Okay. Once I went to once I went to Urban Touch, I almost found my like fit, product market fit, whatever you call it. But I realized yeah, this is it. Like I had an intuition that this is it. Because I had a lot of fun in college, and then I was like, yeah, this is the second time I'm having as much fun or even more and learning even more, and now problems are also real, etc. I realized, yeah, this is where I want to be. So I never applied for any MBA thereafter, etc. So then after Urban Touch, interestingly, Abhishek Goyal asked me a question. So Abhishek was very fond of me. Like again, for some reason, people take sort of pity on me. Ki, yaar, he was very fond of me. And we would hang out a lot because he was also like Bachelor back then. I was also Bachelor back then. Everyone else was married, right? So like almost the junior most guy and the senior most guy, we would hang out. Everyone else in the middle was sort of married or dating or whatever. So Abhishek told me, I was like, "Ab kya kiya jaye? Like after Urban Touch, what should I do?" He was like, "No, I think you should build a business." Again, these are small things where someone gives you confidence and you're like, "हाँ, मतलब." Maybe हो सकता है, right? और उसी में बोल देते कि भाई तुझसे ना होगा, तू जाके कुछ और कर ले, तो maybe I would not have started, right? So like, and he said, if you had $100 million, what would you do? And I was always very idealistic because education and my dad went to Netherhat, which is a school, इसकी अलग कहानी है. I've always been fascinated by that boarding school called Netherhat. So my intuitive answer was, if I have $100 million and hence money is not a problem, I'll build India's best school. That was my intuitive answer. I would build India's best school. So then वहाँ से whole journey started. Where we started researching about education. Thankfully, 2 of my very good, very capable friends also had the bug at the same time. So we all moved from Bangalore. I was in sort of NCR, Aniket was in Bombay, my third co-founder was in Chennai. We said Bangalore seems central, so all of us came to Bangalore. And we started researching education, and with a very, very utopian point of view.
Yes, how do we make like you packed up your bags, moved and like moved in this place.
Yeah,
no idea what we're gonna do.
Yeah, we don't know what we are going to do. but we want to start a company, right? So yeah. So and then we were very idealistic about it. Yeah, let's figure out something where we can actually improve outcomes and make kids into super smart kids, like make them very, very curious about math, science, and everything. Well, what we noticed interestingly was that till class 2 now, everyone says that kids are very smart. Like nobody says my kid is not smart, right? And suddenly something happens in class 6th or 5th where it starts segregating. Like some people, right, start like क्या नहीं, then मतलब वो क्लियर हो जाता है कि टॉप एवरेज वो ना क्लियर होने लगता है, which is probably primarily I think a function of like whether the teacher or whoever is around or parent, teacher or environment, whatever, was able to like get the kid interested in those things or not. I think it's primarily a function of curiosity and I think that was my hypothesis, right? If you're curious, then
so how much is like nurture versus nature? Like how much is the environment versus like innate or a bit of both, right? It's
but I like my hypothesis was mostly like everybody is baseline smart, and if you do the nurture right, the outcome will be significantly better than at whatever nature, whatever skill you have, it will be better. So we went around India super idealistic, like we took our jhola, went to all the good schools in India, Riverside पहुंच गए, अहमदाबाद पहुंच गए, सब जगह पहुंच के भाई पढ़ा क्या रहे हो, कैसे पढ़ा रहे हो, we do it all of that like for 3-4 months. Then finally we said like let's build a product. We built a product which was effectively helping kids do homework in a more active learning manner. So instead of like India, at least when I have maybe I have this rage inside me. You know, when I studied digestive system, the bloody homework was make a diagram of the digestive system, label it and bring it back. तो क्या समझ में आया भाई उसमें, मतलब मुझे मतलब क्या समझ में आया, कुछ नहीं समझ में आया, राइट? मतलब वो बट आई वाज रटने में स्मार्ट, तो आई वुड मेक दिस डायग्राम, लेबल इट, एग्जाम में भी लिख के आया, ठीक है? फंक्शन ऑफ ड्यूडेनम ये होता है, लार्ज इंटेस्टाइन ये होता है, स्मॉल, राइट? लाइक इट वाज like this is not what you're supposed to do, right? Like, so we built a platform which was like an interactive Quora. We said we will ask a question saying in a supermarket everything is high fiber when fiber is not even digested by your body. What's the big deal about fiber? Now go and do your independent research and make like a 3-minute talking presentation on it, and we will make this whole multimedia suite of doing research and putting this whole thing together. So it was
so
a
go on like to explore and try to click on stuff, figure out.
Like you can drag and drop, you have their resources, you can do your research and then you can put things together, and उस समय HTML5 नया आया था, तो ऑडियो फाइल ऐसे इनकोड हो जाएगी और ये etc. We did all of that sort of for 4 months, like sitting in a room and like building that product, and then went to schools and schools said fuck off, like, basically. And the schools were like get lost. So like that was my first real life experience of reality meeting the whole product and all that sort of thing. We will change the world, actually meeting the road movement, right? So school said like we don't care. Like we went to like I would have gone to like 100 schools, right? And we were so dumb back then because entrepreneurship is supposed to be sangharsh, where we would take buses and like go to schools and पैदल चल रहे हैं 5 किलोमीटर, और अच्छा लग रहा है कि यार संघर्ष कर रहे हैं, यही तो कहानी पढ़े. This is what we read in that book. Now we are living that and all of that nonsense. We did all of that, and then the school would say, fat chance, right? Like fat chance, like not happening. So we realized we know so little about how to build companies and go to market motion and all of that. So it was like so we said isko band karo, and then we pivoted to something completely different, which are the peer-to-peer used car platform.
Oh my god.
The mother of all hard pivots.
That's a hard pivot.
So
hardest pivot.
Mother of hard. So we said कि यार ये education बंद करो, school से कुछ नहीं बिकेगा, ठीक है? And obviously we should have been smarter. Yeah, we should have been smarter. We should have been more like प्रोडक्ट क्या है, प्रॉब्लम किसको है. अच्छा सिंगापुर के स्कूल्स को शायद प्रॉब्लम होगी, उसका गो टू मार्केट उतना नहीं, लेकिन उस समय समझ में आता था. Like we were like this was our first startup, first like so. And while we had a lot of mentors, we did not know how to ask for mentorship and ask the right question. Mentorship भी सही question पूछोगे तब मिलेगी. So we were very, very dumb. And so then we said, let's build something, because we wanted to build. And we looked at a lot of ideas and finally came to this. So we effectively ended up building what Spinny was building. Like what Spinny is building now. Right. Saying कि hey, like more of a peer-to-peer used car transaction platform with a certifier in the middle, like who's doing all the logistics and all of that. So did that, that sort of, we did our research better, we figured out the user persona, the problem, etc. much better than the earlier one, which was very, very idealistic and altruistic and all of that. So this time we had more success. We sort of, we met Mukul Singhal, who was earlier at SAIF, and he decided to take a bet on us. So we raised a seed round, and then we built a team, and then we had some sort of good traction and all of that. And sort of we raised a Series A round. But we were very, very sort of, again, like we were quite, we were working hard, but we were not like 1% as strategic as we are sort of now. So we were riding the wave, things were going well and all of that. And then at some point of time, I think we realized, so our vision was to again, again, this is one of those learnings. If someone asked me I was reading so much TechCrunch back then, right? And looking at so much on who is on which magazine cover, he was like ops startup kaun karta hai? Like who builds an ops startup? Like, right? So we were like, yeah, like everyone who comes on Time magazine ka cover has built a marketplace which is low touch, right? Like Facebook, like there's no operations here, although Facebook has a lot of operations, but समझ में थोड़ी आता है. So we're like, yeah, we will build the Flipkart experience for this. Like where you go, check out, the car comes to you, the transaction is super smooth, done. And obviously that works for the first initial set of users, right? Like the first few users, your super core users, उसके लिए works. So we got that traction and we were like doing well and all that. And that doesn't scale. Like it's in India, like car is not a utility purchase. It's still a purchase. The second-hand car bhi hota hai, so the wife comes and okays it, and then the Pandit ji comes and does the puja, and then the car leaves, right? It's not like US where you're buying a you will buy a seventh-hand car also, because you can't go to work in that freezing sort of weather otherwise. Like you will not go to work and die, almost, right? So in India, it's not a utility purchase. It's still like a very, very emotional want to purchase, right? So we realized after a certain point, we realized, yeah, this is the only way to scale this is to get into heavy ops, right? And back then, like our worldview was like, yeah, ops company. Right? Like we didn't realize that yeah, Flipkart is an ops company, Swiggy is an ops company. All these companies are actually like heavy ops companies, right? And like yeah, ops करता है. And it was also the place we started. Like I think our co-founders, like all three of us. So I was the most ops oriented and hence like the most useless. My co-founder was like very, very sort of technical. So like to give you a sense, we had written our code base in Erlang. Erlang के इंडिया में शायद उसमें 7 डेवलपर्स थे इंडिया में, राइट? बट वी हैड रिटन अ कोड बेस इन Erlang, वो फंक्शनल लैंग्वेज स्केल करेगा. यार व्हाट्सएप 4 लोगों ने बैठ के लिख लिया है तो यार हमें 6 से ज़्यादा लोग क्यों चाहिए होंगे, एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा. All like stupidity. Like we did a PhD in some stupidity on these things. We built a very good team. I think the team was great. Like we did some good things also, but ultimately this whole thing of reading too much TechCrunch ops काम करते हैं, we realized ये तो is becoming an ops company, and I think none of us had signed up for that, and it was a stupid decision because Spinny is doing very well, and back then also we knew there's a business here,
there's a play,
but ops काम करता है, right? So it was the dumbest thing ever, but that happened, and then we had capital in the bank, and we asked the investors, can you take the capital back? I think we had $3.5-4 million in the bank. We had raised 7 or something. So we said, again, wrong decision. Today I would never advise that decision. I think entrepreneur का धर्म होता है कि जो पैसा मिला है उसको लेके PMS तक पहुंचो, और irrespective of whether you need 17 pivots or 20 sort of changes. But back then again we were very idealistic. यार वो पैसा मिला है, नहीं हो पा रहा है हमसे, तो हमें लौटा देना चाहिए. वो सब समझ में आया हमें. So we did that, and all our investors are very gracious about it. Especially Ravi. By that time Mukul Singhal had moved on from SAIF. So Ravi was the one, Ravi who's the founder of the fund, was very extremely gracious, gave us a very patient hearing, consoled us, told us, don't worry, this happens, it's okay. Was also very gracious in helping us give our team like a 2 months like severance for everyone and all of that, so that everyone has a soft landing. So Ravi was very, very gracious, and also I was thinking what to do next. I didn't want to rebound into a startup. I knew I would ultimately want to do something, but I didn't want to sort of rebound into it. And very luckily, like SAIF was looking for someone to join the investing team, and I sort of talked to them, gave interviews, and got through. So that's how I sort of I ended up spending 2 years as a VC investor at SAIF. which was again very interesting. Like I think it gave me very interesting frameworks on how to evaluate a business strategically, how to think of things. Like before I went to SAIF, I was someone who could work very hard and who could hire people well and could rally people sort of well. But I don't think I had a very good sense of how to think through markets and think through profit pools and think through why now and think through what is 10x better and think through scaling and think through competitive advantages. I think all of that sort of happened at SAIF because you end up working with smart people and meeting so many smart entrepreneurs on a daily basis. So that happened. I was there for 2 years. Very lucky to have worked with some very interesting founders up close, like Vidit from Misho, and then Gaurav at an academy. These are the two sort of four. But like you meet so many sort of, you don't end up investing in many of them. But yeah, I ended up meeting very, very smart folks. But I always knew like, so ultimately sort of I get my kick from building. So then the journey of sort of Leap started. And yeah, one thing led to another. And I can tell you about how Leap came about.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, so I come from an education background, like family, and I always default to education. Like my first idea before that was also in education. This time also, this time I said, yeah, I'll not look at schools because I knew what happens when you go through schools. And you can always do B2C, but I thought I found the whole higher education segment more sorted because the payer, the decision maker, and the user is the same. Right? Unlike like
so it's
school,
aligned.
like,
All the incentives are aligned.
yeah, so those things are like there's one persona that you have to cater to rather than three personas, right? So I started looking at like a bunch of these ideas, spent some time looking at Lambda School and figuring out how to do income share agreements. So they worked on that for some time. Interestingly, I also, while I was doing that, I was talking to a lot of like people who are software engineers and what are you sort of planning to do next? What will be the next big step up in your career, etc. And that is where I realized that I had never studied sort of after sort of IIT, right? Like higher education was never on my mind. But when I started talking to a lot of these folks, I realized a lot of these folks actually think about studying at a global school now. Very interestingly, and then I started talking to more and more folks, and then I found a couple of examples at my home as well. So, like my brother, for example, is 2.5 years younger than me. He didn't go to an IIT, so he went to sort of JP Institute of Technology, and again, he was not very serious about sort of academics throughout his life. So he was more smart kid, but more fun-loving, sort of that way. So he had worked at Accenture for, I think, 4 years in India, and his career was not sort of going anywhere. And maybe just him, I'm not generalizing it for like everyone at Accenture, but for him, his career wasn't going anywhere in terms of either comp or anything else. Then like he went to the US, did a 18 months sort of master's course in sort of, and not the sexiest course, right? It was management information systems, so not even computer science, right? But I think got very serious about his career, and maybe I don't know what happened, but he completely flipped a switch, became very, very serious, completely different person, graduated. First job was like $85,000 job. He's been there for 6 years now, bought a house in Chicago, drives a BMW. I am the black sheep of my family now. My parents, every vacation, they'll go there, they'll not come to Bangalore. I'd seen sort of that. And interestingly, he's 3 years younger to me, 2.5, 3 years. Now, all my cousins, when I started doing research, like the cousins were 8, 9 years younger than me because I'm the eldest. My dad is the eldest and I'm the eldest kid, right? So, all my sort of cousins are sort of much younger. I was just amazed how like they were thinking about education very differently. So I had graduated from IIT. Like folks who actually thought about studying abroad were either like folks who were like 9.99 pointers, right? Like PhD करेंगे Stanford में जाके, or folks who were like very clear कि after 2 years, 3 years I'll go and do an MBA, and they're also like mostly folks who came from some money, right? Versus when I was doing this research in like 2019, which is 9 years after I graduated, like the worldview was very different. Like, so I had cousins who were like, oh, I studied law. Now I want to go to Singapore and do a master's in law. And she's working in Cyril Amachan, but she's like, no, I want to go and I'll do a master's there, and then I'll sort of decide whether I want to stay there and come back. I have another cousin who, for some reason, wanted to study luxury management. So he wanted to go to Italy. I want to sort of like, so she's always been like into fashion and all that. She was like, I want to study luxury management. And like, I had another cousin who was very clear ki, like, he wanted to study economics and filmmaking. Like he had figured this out. Like there's a US university, I have this option, economics and filmmaking. I will study. I was like, okay. So I was just amazed at the way people were thinking about education. Like very different from, you know, ki, oh, you go to IIT or you like
It's not
PCI,
just the US MBA now as well. It's like much broader than that, right? People
much
are looking
broader,
for,
right? And it had percolated down the middle class also. Like I come from a middle class family. Both my parents are like teachers and all that. And I could clearly see that this has gone from being something which only the top 1% thought of to I think now a much broader sense. And that's not to say that people are not thinking of studying in India, but the worldview is now much more holistic and people are thinking whether to study in India or to study somewhere else and what is that ROI. Because like all said and done, studying in India is not cheap anymore either. Like if you look at MBA and like all of that, it's not cheap anymore. So like whether you look at IM fees, ISB fees, or like Nasi Monji fees or any fees, right? So I think now people are thinking about it very. Maybe it's also a function of people being much more exposed now to career options. Maybe they are much more. They have a better worldview, or maybe India's middle class story is now panning out a little bit that people can think of. You know, spending a little more on post-grad education and all that. But that was very interesting. So that's how we started looking at this whole segment. And again, I was very lucky that I met Vaibhav, re-met Vaibhav about 17th time on this journey. So Vaibhav is like my co-founder, is 2 years senior to me from IIT Kharagpur. So I've known him for like a good 15 years, I don't know, even more than 15 years now. And Vaibhav is probably the smartest person I've known in finance. So on campus also, it was like anyone who wants to do anything in finance, please go to Vaibhav. So I think he was probably one of the first CFA charter holders and all of that there. Sparked the whole CFA trend, I think, in IIT Kharagpur. And then went to Deutsche. When I joined Deutsche, he was my officially assigned mentor. And then he worked at Deutsche for 6 years. Then he came back to India. He was the third employee at Capital Float. Then he became my MD at Incred. So he had always been doing sort of fin and fintech, and probably the smartest person I know. So we would bounce off ideas to one another. And he was looking at this market more from a financing lens, because he was doing the student financing for Indian students and international students, and he was looking at. So I think it was very lucky that I was looking at it from more the, where's the market, where are people going, more from the study lens, like in terms of people wanting global educations and global education, global careers now. And he was looking at it more from a financing lens. So I think luckily it came together, and we are in some sense now a fintech company, because we have half tech, half fintech. So so that's how the journey of Leap came about.
Maybe you can tell us a bit about what Leap's offering is for students and
sure.
What metrics you guys use. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So I think the simplest way to understand sort of Leap is what we are saying is, hey, anyone who wants to think of a global career should think of Leap as their platform of choice. Because unlike, let's say, doing undergrad in India, which is a very objective process, you give an exam, you get a rank, you know which college you're going to. Actually, sort of when you start thinking of global education, it's much more complicated. Because there are no objective exams, it's actually a lot more subjective. And there are a lot of variables, like which country, which course, which university, 18-month course or 24 months course. Are you going for a PR in mind? Do you want to come back? Are you going on a scholarship? How will you arrange your financing? Which exams will you give? Do you want to give GRE, or do you want to actually give? There are a lot of schools who now accept GMAT, even if you're going for a sort of technical sort of course, or do you want to give TOEFL, IELTS? So it's a very, very complicated decision for a young folk, like for someone who is like maybe 20, maybe 22, 23, 24, 25, which is a typical age group. It's probably the biggest financial and career decision people take. And it's fraught with a million questions and maybe 10 million doubts. So I think effectively what we are trying to do is, we are saying, hey, anyone who has this global ambition of pursuing a global career and pursuing a global education should think of Leap as a platform of choice. And we have built Leap as a end-to-end platform for that. So like the joke is that within Leap we run 6 businesses, because it's a long journey. Like people start thinking of pursuing a let's say a global degree on day one and end up going to do that on day 410, right? So there's so many hoops to jump. Like first you build confidence, then you talk to seniors, you talk to peers, you figure out how do I go there, then you give an exam, then you figure out finances, then you figure out how to write an SOP, then you figure out how to make an application, and then you get an admit, then you are again figuring out financing, and then how to get the visa, and then how to go and accommodation and forex and all of that, and then jobs and internships. It's such a long journey that we now probably have like 5 products within the company. But the simpler way to understand is that we are a end-to-end platform catering to pretty much every need that the student has, whether it's finding a community where they can find like-minded peers and seniors, or a research platform where they want to sort of get answers to their questions, or a testable platform where they want to prepare for IELTS, GRE, etc., or a platform where they can actually apply to sort of universities and maximize their chances, or they want to get a financing product, or they want to get an accommodation product, etc., etc. So the best way to think about this is that we have built this whole suite of products catering to different use cases of users across the journey.
It's interesting because usually you think about one thing, but this takes care of all their needs end to end.
Yeah, it's a little bit out of compulsion because we started with the financing product because we knew like it's a 10x better product. We knew we could bring down the cost of borrowing significantly, and I don't want to bore you with like the details of it, but our product is a destination currency product where you get financing at a significantly cheaper rate without any sort of forex sort of markup, risk, whatever. So no ALM mismatch because you're going to earn in dollars, you have borrowed in INR and all of that. So we knew that there's a 10x better product there. So we started with that, but we knew that financing comes at the end of the journey and you don't want to be commoditized. So you have to move upstream and have the primary relationship with the user. So we have had to move upstream. The interesting thing is as we moved upstream, we figured out it's not just owning the customer strategy, there are actually like very significant monetization that you can drive as you move up. So in some sense now it's like a well panned out multiple sort of product platform which has worked well for us. So we acquire users very, very early and they walk through us through the journey. Obviously, like not everyone walks through the whole journey. We are still fighting the whole battle of cohorts and retention and engagement and all of that, as every business is. But that's the idea. We acquire them very, very early and walk with them through sort of a very, very long journey.
Maybe because you've seen so many journeys over such a period of time and seen so much data. What are some trends you're seeing? What are some of the things that people are looking at that they weren't looking at maybe 5-10 years ago in terms of
for example, like most Indian students don't go to the USA. It was a shocker for me.
Yeah.
It's actually Canada. Canada is like where
Canada's top
most Indians, and by a factor of 2. So
Crazy.
twice the number of Indian students go to Canada now. Canada is extremely welcoming of like skilled workers and graduates. And Indian students are like, I keep telling people, there's hardly anyone who's probably smarter and more, as you call it, jugadu or resourceful than an Indian student. Indian students are able to figure out like what gives them the best bang for buck and sort of figure out what's the best option for them. So so that's, for example, one thing. Canada, like very, very sort of popular. Ireland is becoming very popular for like marketing and digital marketing and all of these courses. UK has grown 4x over the last 2 years. Like number of students going to UK from India has become 4x over the last 2 years because they have now sort of again become much more welcoming of sort of international graduates, and their post-study work, sort of visa policies, etc., have been very, very welcoming. So we see a bunch of this happening. Nursing is like crazy, and there's a little bit of demand supply equation here as well. I don't think, like, if you look at Japan, I think if you send like 100,000 nurses there tomorrow, they'll probably take it.
Wow. The Canada stat is surprising, but I'm not shocked, I would say. But that's very interesting. The Ireland one, the UK one. What's
the other interesting thing is it's not just folks who have graduated from the top institutions in India and now looking to go purely to do research. Actually, now a lot of folks are choosing these colleges over, let's say, doing an MBA in India, because they just feel that the career options and the whole demand supply equation is actually very, very different.
What's next for Leap?
I think we are, for all practical purposes, a 2.5-year-old company. So there are like so many things to fix and so many things to build and so many things to do. Primarily, it's execution. Like this time, we are very clear that we are a execution company. So like, and I embrace that wholeheartedly. That sort of I think execution makes a real difference. And there's a lot of things to. I think we're just scratching the surface. There's so many things that we need to build. For example, in test prep, we only do pretty much IELTS. We do IELTS very well. We are probably the leaders. Now we are leaders in the world when it comes to IELTS prep, but we are not sort of very good at, let's say, SAT, in the sense that we have not invested in it. So test prep, there's like so much expansion. Again, on community, I think there's a lot more we can do. On India-US corridor, we are very, very strong. India-Canada, we are very, very strong. But we have to sort of expand it to sort of other corridors. Again, like country expansion, both in terms of, so now we have started going international this year. So that's a lot of work on both the demand side and the supply side.
Awesome. Just to close out, what's one piece of unfiltered feedback you've received in your journey? I know you've shared a lot already, but maybe something different.
Piece of unfiltered feedback.
That's why we are called Founders Unfiltered. I thought the conversation was pretty unfiltered. So thank you for that.
No, I appreciate that. I don't know any other mode, and it was a lot of fun talking to you folks. Unfiltered feedback. I've got so many, I've just lost track of like where to start.
Choose one, the one that probably stayed the most with you.
Yeah, I think the one feedback that was really shocking, I don't know, unfiltered or whatever, was when someone just told me that I don't think you're very sharp.
Okay.
And I was like, well, this is the first time someone has told me, like, people can tell me that, okay, you don't, probably not smart at sort of maths as smart as, let's say, the ARN 3 in JER, but nobody has told me dumb. So, but this person was like, I don't think you are sharp. And then sort of obviously there was a lot of discussion and there was a lot of introspection. And I realized that it's probably because I was playing the wrong game. It was just, I think after that feedback, it's been very, very clear to me that, irrespective of, you have to decide your game. Like, you can't, and then be clear that this is my game. You want to be the Michael Jordan of that game. It might take you 5 years or 15 years or 35 years. But I think, and if I can take 2 minutes, maybe I'll just explain this better. I think once you decide your game and you fix it, like for example, I think we are all spoiled. Like all of us, I think we are very, very spoiled, especially as a generalist, right? We are very, because we feel that we can do everything. Yeah, like we can start a company, we can be a product manager, we can learn marketing also, we can do banking also, we can actually become a consultant also, I can become a YouTuber also. Like we feel like we can pretty much do everything, right? Which I think usually comes in the way of like achieving full potential. Like, so the analogy is like Sunil Chhetri will not wake up tomorrow and say, Virat Kohli is making more money, let me start playing cricket. And Virat Kohli will not wake up and say, ki boss, like whoever is making the most money in sort of NBA, whatever they're saying, yeah, basketball khel leta hai, right? But I think we are spoiled for choice, and that's why we have more distractions also, saying कि यार ये भी कर लेते हैं, ये भी कर लेते हैं, and this seems more interesting. The other time when I was enamored by growth hacking, कि बहुत growth hacking सीख लेते हैं, right? This was like 2012, and the other time I was like यार developer बन जाए क्या? क्योंकि developer की life तो सबसे आसान लग रही है यार, मतलब beer पियेंगे और ये करेंगे. And not to generalize, our developers are very hardworking. They're still sitting there and working, but I think just zoning out that this is my game, I think has been very helpful. That feedback actually forced me to think why am I not like performing at the top of my game? And like I'm just playing the wrong game, and the motivation is something else. It's not what I really want to do every day when I wake up in the morning. I'm just doing this because it seems like the more lucrative thing to do. And I think that has stayed with me. And thereafter, like, I think it has been very helpful for me to decide, boss, it doesn't matter whether it takes me 35 years or 5 years or 12 years, but I have decided my game and I want to play sort of this game. As long as I'm getting better every day, I'm learning faster, better than last week, I'll do okay.
Right.
It's okay. Like I'll do fine. I think that was probably like the best feedback I got, because it jolted me and told me that no point playing someone else's game. Like, you have some natural strengths. It's better. Like, Sunil Chhetri like should not be saying कि अच्छा ठीक है, I'm born to play football and let me play
Right.
basketball, because there's more there. So I think that's probably the one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arnav, for the conversation. Enjoyed it. Didn't feel like the time that passed. Thank you for sharing so openly.
Yeah. No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the great questions.
Hope it was a memorable first one.
Yeah, it was memorable. I'm just worried that I've done so much blabbering here that this will stay online for posterity, which is the problem with all these formats. I don't know which part of this will come back and bite me well, but we'll see.
Life's too short for that. Too worry.
Yeah, life's too short. Okay, cool then.